Hello, now I'm going to talk about component testing. So you have already done methods, you have tested the methods in isolation, then the methods together in the class, and then we're going to test basically the interactions between interfaces of different components of different classes, okay? What you should be aware is that there are failures that result from interactions between units. And this can be a bit surprising, but what happens is that the reason for most of the problems that occur when you test through the interfaces or the bugs that occur because interactions is that usually interfaces are where teams decide. So an interface is a contract, and which means that you are testing a component in isolation. It was implemented by the same team, okay? But then when you're testing two components together through an interface, this interface is a contract and it was implemented by different teams, which means that can be a lot of misunderstanding about this definition. And so it's very common that you find bugs and errors when you just put these together and try to check whether everything is working okay. Okay, so it's really worth doing it. Now the problem is how you are going to do it. As we have seen already, you have this idea in outside in inside out is a bit the same strategy. So you are going to test these incrementally. So you don't want you could have a test strategy called Big Bang that probably you put all the components together and you test them. Okay, all the objects together and you test them. But then it's gonna be difficult to find where are the real bugs. Okay, so another way to do it actually is to define an incremental development. You can incremental testing, and you can do it. You can call it bottom up or top down, but actually you can also call them inside out and outside in. So basically the idea is that if you decide to test first the components that are in the center, okay, and then you just test the dependencies, the other components that invoke them, and you just keep adding components, you are in some way doing inside out, okay? The problem with this is that actually you only at the end test the functionality, because first you are testing combinations of components that have nothing to do with the functionality. And if you test inside, outside, in, you have the advantage that you start testing the functionality. But the problem with this is that, well, to do it, you need to mock. You need to use mocks so that basically you don't, you can test just the components that are outside, and then you mock the ones that are inside, okay? And in reality, most of the time you do a mix of both, okay? And sometimes this is called also sandwich testing. Okay, I have pictures to show you. Let's just do it, okay? So for Big Bang testing, what you have is that you just test them together. Suppose that you have these components, okay? And that's the interface. So it's through this interface that actually you realize what is the functionality. So basically you test them all together. So suppose that we have test each one of them in isolation, and now you test them together. The problem is that probably you're going to find easy to find or difficult to find which component is responsible for the integration problems. Okay. Then you have bottom-up integration that can be also called inside out, and basically what you start doing is you start defining. So you create a test, for instance, for C, D, and E, okay, because they are, look, basically E doesn't depend on anything, but then you have D the same and C use them. So you test them, these three together, okay? And then you keep doing these incrementally. Sorry, you keep these incrementally. Then you test these, and then finally test this. Only in test 3, actually, you are testing the functionality as a whole, okay? So that's the disadvantage of this, okay? There are other combinations of this. And then you have top-down integration, probably that you used when you use human interfaces, okay, where you put a big emphasis on the mocking on the interface. So in this case, basically, what you do, you just test from the functionality. So your first tests focus on the functionality, and then you go and you include more and more components in your testing, like this. Good? And finally, you have this sandwich testing where you can do both. Well, in reality, any project you just use, you mix these techniques. So in this case, you have doubles here, but you don't have doubles there. Okay? So you mix the text in on a need basis. Okay? And that's it. Okay. Thank you.